It was no doubt the biggest week of the year for the devout Jew. The days leading up to the Passover, especially that last week, were a day filled with great events and great anticipation of the greatest feast day of the year for those Jews. It has been estimated that between 2 and perhaps as many as 3 million people came to Jerusalem for this feast. Even if it was half that number, if that's an exaggerated number, and it was just half that number, it still was an incredible crowd that came. It is during this period of time that we read about Jesus, of course, approaching the city for the final week of his life that would lead up to his crucifixion. The Bible tells us in John chapter 12, beginning at verse 12, the next day, the large crowd that had come to the feast heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem. That again indicates the size and the proportion of the people who were there. And they had just heard about this man, Jesus, who had brought Lazarus back from the dead. And so they're very interested in finding him and seeing him on this particular occasion. We read further, so they took branches of palm trees and went out to meet him, crying out, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, even the King of Israel." You see, they were giving him a royal reception. When a king came back from a victory at war, they spread the palm branches out and they all lined the streets, and they would say great things about that man who was the king, and they would say, basically, God save the king. Well, that word Hosanna that they were using on this occasion means God save. And they were calling him the King of Israel. Perhaps they were setting him up in their minds as not a spiritual king, but most likely as a physical king. This great man who could do all these great things, surely he's the answer to all our problems as the Jewish people of this Roman oppression. But Jesus, of course, was coming for a very different reason. In most editions of the Bible, this particular event is called the triumphal entry. And it's a triumph of many sorts, but not exactly the way the crowd intended it to be. Because the same way that they gave these victory accolades to a conquering king that they were giving to Jesus, they thought he was a physical king. Jesus, though, by the end of the week, would be proven to be the great spiritual king that all these people needed. Because even some of these same people, by the end of the week, would be shouting, "Crucify him." They needed the king. They needed the king of their heart, just like you and I do.